Alright guys, for your flex day today, you're going to be starting a new game called Charades. Charades works kind of like the iPhone game Heads Up. In PLTW, you're coming all the way down now to lesson 2. Instead of lesson 1, we're going to skip down to 2.3, which is the Charades game. So on activity 2.3, it's called Making the List. You come in here, we're all going to pick the version 1 of Charades. So we're going to click on here. And it tells you that it's the heads up game. So you can kind of see the person in the picture. They've got their phone on top of their head. Their phone would display a word to the people around them. They would have to try to get the person holding the phone to guess the word. We're still scrolling down. And number 3 says you want to start in the designer view, look at all the different components that we have, and then we're going to explore the code in the blocks editor. Charades starts a point in PLTW where it doesn't give you as many picture directions of the code. It gives you word directions, and then you have to turn those into the code yourself. So you can watch the video if you want. It introduces you to how lists work and tells you the 2 different kinds. You have static lists, which are lists that are going to be the same no matter what you do. And then you have a dynamic list, which will take away choices as you use them. For now, we're going to start with the static list. You come down here. It talks about using the word phrase list variable. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go to my split screen and show you that along with App Inventor. So in my App Inventor, mine's already completed, so it's going to look a little different than yours. Actually, I bet I have one that's not like that. Let me pull up a blank one. So here's what yours should look like. It talks about the lists. We're going to skip through those for now. It talks about deploying it. We're still skipping through that because now they're just using a different version, and we don't want to use that. It shows you at the very end where you get to conclusion what a list actually looks like. So over here in the PLTW book, it says analyze the following programs. So we have the first block of code here, which is a variable because it's orange, and it says initialize global question list to make a list, and it gives you a bunch of questions. Then it gives you an answer list. What we want to do for your charades game today, I'll go back to full screen on App Inventor, is we want to make it so that when we come back to school on Thursday, our lists are ready to go. So in here, on our designer view, where it says click here for word or phrase, that's where we would have like a start button. The number of correct guesses here in the middle, that's going to be your score. And then the word that we're supposed to act out, that we're going to pull from that list, goes down here in this big gray spot. None of that's really going to happen right here yet, so we're going to go over to blocks. And this is the code that it comes with. It comes with a score. It comes with a timer. Your start button will start your timer. Your reset button will reset your score and your timer. Your skip button will take away a point. Your reset button will reset the game. And of course, you have a timer here that already works. You don't have to touch any of that. So I'm going to find a blank spot on my canvas down here, and I need to do a list. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to variables, just like in that picture on PLTW, and I'm going to initialize global, and I'm going to name mine word list. If you name yours something different than mine, that's fine, but then you're also going to have to remember what you named it because it's going to look different. To initialize my global list, I then need to come to my lists button, and I'm going to make a list, which is my second choice down. From here, I'm just going to use regular text boxes to fill in what I think are the words I want my person to guess. So I'm the teacher, so maybe I'm going to make a list of excuses that students use to leave the room. So I'm going to say need to go to locker. Need to call my mom. I want you to have at least 10 options on your list To get more, I need to hit this little blue gear. And then I can take the item and drag and drop it into the list. And as I do that, you see that you add more down here. I need 10 total, so I'm going to keep going. And you get the idea. You just keep putting items in there until you have as many as you want. Keep adding my text boxes to fill in my excuses that I get from my students. You cannot use any of the list options that I have given you today. You have to come up with your own thing. So I get all these filled in for my 10. Now that I have my word phrase list created, what I would like you to do is look through this code that is already printed for you. When do you think that that word list should actually show up? When do you want your game to start? Well, for most people, they're going to want their word phrase to show up when they click their word phrase button, which is already created for you. So I've got my word phrase button, and I can say that when that word phrase is clicked, I want to call from my list. So I should be able to go to my variables, and set my list from there. What we're going to do on Thursday when you return is actually learn procedures. So I think I'm just going to show you the start of that one now instead. Procedures are kind of like a recipe. If I create a procedure to change my word phrase, I can write that procedure one time and say, if I want my word to change, you need to do step A, B, C, D. And then when I need to put that somewhere, like in my word phrase button, all I have to do is one procedure rather than rewrite my recipe every time. So under procedures, they're blank right now. So I'm going to say to do procedure. It's the first one. I'm going to come down here, zoom in a little for you. I'm going to name this change phrase because this is where I want my word to change that I'm trying to get someone to guess. Anytime I want my word phrase to change, I'm going to need to have this part of my screen right here show up my new word. It's already built for me. It's called item label. So when I come back to my blocks, I need to set my item label to something from my list. So over here in my blocks, I'm looking for item label, which for me is about halfway down. And I'm looking for one that says set item label text. So I'm going to scroll down. It's dark green. Set item label text. I'm going to throw that in. Because I already made my list, I can scroll up to my variables and choose to get something from my list. This will work as long as you go in order. The problem is, it's a charades game. We don't really want the words to go in order every time. We want to keep the person guessing on what it is actually going to look like. So if we go to lists, we have the option here that we can tell it to pick a random item, which is right here. So I'm going to choose pick random item, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of those two blocks. So when I want to change my phrase, it's going to set my item label to any random spot on my global word list. Now, anytime I want to change my word, like when I choose my word phrase button, when I click that, I can just go to procedures and I can say, call change phrase. There are other times in this code that I'm going to want that word to change by itself. And now all I'll have to do when I would need that to happen is call change phrase. So your job today during the flex day is to write these lines of code. Okay, so you're going to initialize your global list with 10 choices. You're going to build a procedure called change phrase that sets your word phrase label, and you're going to say, when word phrase button click, change the phrase. When you're done, I want a screenshot of this. So I'm going to take a screenshot. The things that we're looking for inside of this are this code, this code, this code, and that's what gets turned in to Canvas for today. When you get in on Thursday, we're going to go on, so you really don't want to start behind. Make sure you're at this point already. If you have any questions, we are available after 1 p.m. with messages.